Okay, sir. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
I specially welcome today's seventh session expert, Mr. Uday Puthli, sir, and I also welcome all participants in 1 week online faculty development program on research methodology organized by PVPIT Budka. Before starting session, I will introduce today's expert, Mr. Uday Puthli, sir. Sir has completed diploma in mechanical engineering from Andhra Pradesh State Board of Technical Education and Training, Hyderabad. He has completed graduateship in industrial engineering with office organization and management and marketing and market research as electives from Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering. Then he has completed his master's diploma in business administration with specialization in production management from Deccan Education Society, Institute of Management, Development and Research, Pune. Sir has huge industrial experience as well as teaching experience, near about 50 to 53 years approx. He has 30 years industrial experience. Out of these, 5 years experience as a junior engineer with Bajaj Tempo, now it's Force Motors Limited, and later with Kirloskar Pneumatic. Then 25 years experience in Tata Engineering and Locomotive, now it's Tata Motors. At senior level in Human Resource and Productivity System divisions. After industrial experience, he was working as a corporate trainer and freelancer near about 6 years. After this, he was working as an adjunct faculty at COEP Pune from from 2006 to 2019. Again from 2023 to till date, he is working as an adjunct faculty at COEP Technological University Pune. During his professional achievements, he got Professor Chakraborty Silver Medal for securing the second rank All India at January 1984 graduateship examination of the Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering, Mumbai. He got silver medal, which was awarded by National Safety Council, Mumbai, at national level safety essay competition in 1988. He was worked as a panelist on the selection committee for admission to the PGDM program of the Institute of Management Development and Research, Pune. He is associate member of Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering, Navi Mumbai. He has conducted number of training programs and in number of training programs for industrial employees as well as for the students. Some of them I will tell you. He has conducted course on skills for reading effectively as a part and induction program for planning officers recruited by Department of Town Planning, Government of Maharashtra. He has conducted training program on workshop English to enable workmen of the rock processing division to communicate effectively across all levels at Sadvik, Sadvik Asia,
Sandvik Asia.
Sadvik Asia Limited, Pune. Sorry. He has conducted workshop on applied English for engineers and technicians and communication in English for union representatives at Sadvik Asia Limited, Pune. He has conducted training program on functional English for aspiring call centers executives at DMEC Computer Academy, Pune. He also conducted training in communication skills and workplace English at Indian Institute of Dealership Management, Pune. He has delivered lecture come demonstration on voice and speech for power communication as a part of a workshop on creating a personal brand image for young executives in Pune. He has also conducted workshop on skills for facing job interviews for postgraduate students of the Department of Mathematics, University of Pune. He has conducted courses, several courses, in-house courses, productivity, management principles, company policy, etc. for employees at various levels at Telco Limited. Now its company name is Tata Motors. He has conducted training programs to the for employees in Tata Code of Conduct, problem solving techniques for the small group activity for employees at various levels at Telco Limited. He has delivered guest lecture on managing effectively in public services at a course for officers of the Department of Custom and Central Excise Pune. He has delivered a lecture on job evaluation in telco implications and relationship with job enlargement, job enrichment, and job rotation at the Pune Divisional Productivity Council Pune. He has also delivered the lecture on application of job evaluation in telco at Bajaj Tempo Limited. Now it's Force Motors company name is. He has also delivered lecture on careers planning through multi-skill development for MBA students at Indira Institute of Management, Pune. He has published a number of articles and a list of papers. Some of them now I will tell. That is first he as of now I told that the he got silver medal by National Safety Council. So he has published the article that is safety awareness present state and future course of action in 1988. He has one of the essay published on quality circles as I see them during the National Convention of the Quality Circles Forum of India in 1988. He has a technical paper presented at the 34th National Convention of the Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering held at CVP Pune. The paper name is Industrial Engineering in Canteen Services. He has published paper in TMTC Journal of Management, Pune. The paper name was Career Planning through the Multi-Skill Development, the Telco Experience. And he has also presented paper at the second national seminar on European music in India in June 2000. So name is Curious and choral singing in India, the present scenario. And he also published the various journals on articles and essays. He has edited Tata Indica Owner's Manual also and improved the presentation of the manual for Tata Engineering. Now it's Tata Motors. So, sir has huge experience, and we are very lucky. So, we got his time for this expert session. So, now I request Mr. Uday Puthli, sir, to start your sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashwini. Uh, I will take the liberty of telling the audience that you are a student of mine, and in fact, one of my good
Yes,
students.
yes,
You
yes, sir.
see,
I'm that, sir.
and I was proud to have you, and thank you for all that you have done to introduce me. And when I was listening to this, I was
So,
smiling to myself
okay.
because, well, all this is written in whatever script I gave you, but that you would read out the whole thing quite flattered me. Thank you anyway. Thank you very much. Now, before I begin, I would like to thank I would like to thank Dr. Pankaj Aute, the head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, for being kind enough to invite me to present my views on a particular topic at this seminar. Also, thanks are due to the coordinators, Professor Savan Vani and Professor Ashwini Lad, whom you just heard, and who have done a wonderful job in putting this thing together. Of course, when I thank them, I should also thank the entire team of that is the organizing committee of this seminar. The names are plenty. I wouldn't be able to list them out so well or so easily over here. Apart from which, you see, they have all worked behind the scenes in their own little ways to make this a grand success. Thanks to all of you. Now, last but absolutely not the least, thank you all my listeners, my participants over here, the audience for being here and showing this enthusiasm to find out what this whole thing about reading is. We all read, we all read. But then what has this got to do with research? Well, The way I'm going to develop this, I'm not going to talk about research per se. You have had enough of that from other professors. I'm not going to talk about that. But there are a lot of peripherals which go into doing of research, and one of them is reference work. There can be so many other times when you will need to read. And reading is not just a mechanical process like many of us do. And we are not taught from our school days to read effectively. This course is about that. It's actually a very general course, but I will be, wherever possible, talking with specific reference to how one can read for research. But otherwise, it's a very, very broad course. So, the first question that you will ask me is, what is reading? Or I will ask you. If I ask you, well, I'm sure that every one of you will have a different answer. And believe me, it is quite possible that every one of those answers is correct. But what exactly is reading? Can we have one thing about reading? Well, there was an English philosopher called Francis Bacon who said that very succinctly. He did not define what is reading, but he said, why should one read? And one of the answers he gave, and you will see a slide on that, is reading maketh a full man. We will see what this means. Reading maketh a full man. You become a complete human being, you become a complete person if you have the habit of reading. Now, what is the significance of reading? First of all, if you're wanting to learn to read, why should you learn to read? Well, several reasons. Let me list out some of them. Not all are research oriented. First of all, reading gives us information, and you read so that you get information for any particular purpose. It may be for expanding your knowledge, it may be for writing an examination, it may be for getting information or data for your research work, and so on and so forth. So you get to know a topic. You can answer questions when you read, because you get answers to questions that have been plaguing your mind for quite some time. And then you can also get solutions to questions which are already in your mind by reading. And all this is very important in research. Next, you learn to perform a task in everyday life. You make references and quote them somewhere, what you call citations in when you're writing your research papers or theses, or to collect citations while doing research. And it even helps you, like if you're reading a manual of a particular machine, it helps you to know how it works, how you have to work it, and what happens if it breaks down. Or even as simple as, if you read, for example, if you read a recipe book, you learn how to cook something by following a new recipe. So reading is an all encompassing discipline. Now, of course, we all know that reading helps us to keep in touch with friends, because they write letters to us and we read, we understand, and we reply. We also do official correspondence in our work. As researchers, you will be doing so much of correspondence with various people, with funding agencies, with scientists, and so on and so forth. So you will also have to read there. It is useful to you to know when and where something took place. For example, reading a newspaper, consulting timetables, programs, announcements, notices, menus, advertisements, so on and so forth. And to gain an enjoyment or excitement by reading stories, novels, poems, songs, or scripts of acts in a play, etc. You will be able to perform tasks on your own, such as playing a new game, solving a puzzle, etc. So, from here, you can see that reading is a very, very important part of our life. And that is what this course is going to talk about. So, we shall now begin with the presentation. May I? Okay. So, no, no, not that. Get this for me. Okay. So now, Okay, it's full. It's visible. So, we are talking about reading skills. And the title of this course is Skills and Techniques for Research. So, this is what we are talking about. This will be conducted in two modules. We are beginning with module one. So, first question, and I'd asked you this earlier, what is reading? It says here it's a cognitive process whereby we decode symbols, and from the symbols we derive meaning. Like when you're reading a book, an article, a research paper, or anything, how is it done? It's written in a code. And what is this code? When you write in English, for example, you write it what is called the English alphabet, A, B, C, D, etc. And there is a discipline, there is a science behind it, that when these form a particular permutation or combination, it forms what are called words. Words together form sentences. Sentences to form, etc. These are all symbols, and when our eyes fall on those symbols, it gives meaning to that. And when it gives meaning, the cognitive process starts. By cognitive, I mean the process of recognizing what is being said. So, this, in simple words, is what reading is. Now, what is it that actually happens when we read? First of all, as I said, we obtain information from various sources. It could be I've written only books over here. It's not just books. You people read so much that you will have many, many other sources of information. It helps you to comprehend, or it involves comprehension, because without comprehension or without understanding what you read, even if you know the language, it makes no sense whatsoever. So you have to develop the art of comprehending what you read. Not just comprehending, there's a very interesting thing which we call interpreting, analyzing, and evaluating. Let's take interpreting. You need to interpret what the author wants to say, because a single sentence can mean different things to different persons. But when you are reading not really to decide what you think it means, but what the author wants to convey. Sometimes the author's style of writing it may not be the way you are thinking. So you have to learn the art of what is called reading between the lines. The author has said something, but he wants to say something else. We will see these things in detail once we go further. Just now, it sounds a little odd that I'm saying that what the author says is not what he means. It is not that. He means what he says, but we are unable to see it that way because our minds interpret it in a different way. So it involves being able to interpret what the author wants to say. Finally, you analyze what he says. For example, if there's a lot of data, the analysis very often is yours. You analyze it. You evaluate it. For example, you make comparative studies with similar data which you have found somewhere else. And having evaluated this information, you apply it in your work. Let's go to the next slide. So, here is the $1,000,000 question which I asked right in the beginning. Why should you read? Should you read at all? People, I remember I used to not read much. And my mother used to get after me, read, read, read. So I used to pick up a textbook and she used to fire me. Is that all you can think of? Is examinations all you can think of? There's so much more to read. Please read. So the question is, I used to always say, why? What purpose does it serve? I've got an examination coming. I don't know to read anything else. But today I'm very happy that she nagged me about it, because I do find pleasure in reading lots of things, not only in my subject. So, here is a slide which gives why should one read. I told you the first sentence there, reading maketh a full man. This is what Francis Bacon said. But he said something much more. He said conference makes a ready man and writing an exact man. Now, let's compare this with what you do. When you are, for example, doing a research on a particular project, let's say you are going to convert your work into a paper which you are presenting somewhere. What is the final thing that you do? I'm not talking about reading the paper somewhere. That is the next thing. I'm not talking about publishing it. But before that, what do? You write the paper. You write the paper. Why do you write the paper? You don't write the paper directly. It goes through innumerable iterations, it goes through innumerable drafts. And in the process of writing, rewriting, and finalizing, you are doing something more and more precise, more and more exact. So when you write, you become an exact man, no doubt. But can you be an exact man without being something before that? There comes conference. Conference follows reading because reading is your first step to collecting information. But let's go backwards. You come to conference. What is conference? Conference is meeting. When you say meeting, it could be anything. In the previous lectures, people have told you discuss with your colleagues, discuss with your guide, discuss with so and so, discuss with so and so. But discuss what? You need some information for discussing. So you have to provide that information, and one of the major sources of that information is reading. So when you read much, you read from different areas, your own area plus outside, you do a lot of reference work, you are becoming what they call a full man. You're becoming what they call a full man in the sense you are not just one person walking on the street. You are a person full of knowledge. After that, you come to the conference. When you're discussing with your people, you are becoming ready to do the next step. And that is when you write, you are perfecting what you have read and discussed. So the next one, these we will just rush through. Reading is a conversation, all books talk, but a good book listens as well. Now, this may sound funny. Do books talk? Do they have mouths? Do books listen? Do they have ears? Well, this is a figurative way of saying it. It does not, you should not take it literally. What it really means is when you are reading a book, when you're reading a book, it is actually talking to you. It is giving you information. But when you are getting that information, 100 different questions arise in your mind. So you talk back to the book. You talk back to the book, meaning you're searching everywhere, you're also posing your questions, and the further reading you're doing is doing it with the questions in mind. And if the book is well written, figuratively, the book listens to you when you ask those questions and gives you the answers to the question. If there are problems in your mind, a good book not only tells you the basic theory, it tells you the solutions when you face a problem. This is what it means. And here this is what my mother used to nag me about, and I'm grateful to her. She used to say, the best advice I ever got, let me see it, let us see that I am saying it. It's actually said by David Bailey. The best advice I ever got, in brackets from my mother, was that knowledge is power and to keep reading. Pado, 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 keep reading, keep reading, keep reading. In any language, here's a cartoon. You need to read effectively. Now, basically, what really happens is, can I remove this? Basically, what happens is when we read, you can compare our mind or our brain with a computer. Now, what happens is you feed an information to the computer, and the computer figuratively absorbs that information like a sponge, and it stays there codified for recall whenever you need it. Now, here's a cartoon where the teacher, she probably is an arithmetic teacher, you can see there 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, and so on and so forth, has told the students that what I just said, reading is like a sponge, so you should get knowledge by letting your brain absorb it. So, I mean, brain is like a sponge. Now, this boy has heard this, and the teacher is telling him that is not how the brain absorbs information. Don't put that book on your head. Learn it by reading. So, the next one is again, kya hua? Why is it not going forward? What did you do?
I just click.
Okay, so the next one is a sequel to this. She's finally telling him to read, and the boy has opened the book. And she's telling him that is how people install new software in their brains. That's what I told you a little while ago. So we go to the next one. Now, reading is a skill. It's an art. It's an acquired art. It's not a mechanical thing. But and then there are many theories, there are many styles and techniques that comprehensive readers utilize, or readers utilize to become comprehensive readers. What are comprehensive readers? Comprehensive readers are readers who comprehend, who understand what is read. Now, what are these styles? We can talk about these styles in a little while. They enhance your reading skills by increasing the quality and quantity of our comprehension. I don't need to explain this, it's quite simple. Now, there are several reading techniques. In fact, I have listed out five over here, of which we are going to deal with three. They are skimming, scanning, active reading, detailed reading, and speed reading. We're going to talk about the first two and the last, speed reading. Now, let me just briefly talk about what is active reading. Active reading is when you're reading all the time, not necessarily for your research. You're gaining information. Even a newspaper is a good source of information. So keep reading. It's a good habit. Not just that, when you're active reading, you are actually gaining something out of it by taking in and receiving whatever is being given to you. Detailed reading is not what we are going to talk about in this session, but we are doing scanning, and speed reading. We are going to talk about. Now, once when you mastered this, for example, having done these little things and practiced this and become good readers, then you will be able to spend more time on reading. For example, if you are reading for an examination, you will read it in detail. The way we read for examinations, especially, is very tedious. We will see those things afterwards. We go through what is called visual regression and various other problems, and we don't easily assimilate what we read. So, there's a need for techniques. So, the first technique that we will talk about is skimming. Skimming. Now, before we go to what is skimming in a technical way, I'll answer a question which I'll ask you. See, what is skimming? All of you have heard this word in all kinds of contexts, and therefore you may be able to make sense how it applies to reading. We all know, for example, there are many other examples, but I'm giving you the very common example. We have a thing called skimmed milk. You know, people say that milk is very fattening, we should drink skimmed milk. What does skimmed milk mean? It means milk which does not have fat. And what is fat? The source of fat is cream. So you have to remove the cream. How do you remove the cream? The process is called skimming. There are different ways of doing it. There are machines which do it and which do it very fast without even boiling. But a very simple thing that happens is, in your house, when you boil milk, what happens? The cream floats on top and it forms a layer. If you do not want that cream, you can skim it off. And what is skimming? You take a spoon and slowly remove it all. After some time, it will form again. Do that again and again and again. A very tedious process, but what you're doing is you are removing this. That is called skimming. As a matter of fact, I won't tell you the details of it, but I remember even in my chemistry class in school and college, we had a process called skimming where you removed impurities from certain solutions, etc., by allowing the top layer to be skimmed off. So that is exactly how we do reading, by selectively reading what we want, and the process is called skimming. Here is more about skimming. It's a technique for reading, and it is used to get the gist of the whole text. You're not reading the entire script, you're not reading the entire book, but you must read the most important things to get a general idea of what it is about. It helps in many ways. For example, it will help you in case to know whether you want to read this whole thing or not. You do that often when you're reading a newspaper or magazine. Not everything in a newspaper is of interest to you. So you begin skimming, you look and you do a very quick reading of the thing, of the main points, and skip over the details. Now, why do we do it? You do it to get a preview of the passage before reading it in detail. If we find it interesting or useful, we can go ahead, read it again. And how this is done, we will see in the next slide. It also helps in situations where time is short, like in your school, you had an examination in comprehension skills. Now, most people spent a lot of time over there and often got their answers wrong also, because they spent a lot of time at the cost of other questions. But here, there can be a skimming done, and there can be other techniques which help you to understand the passage well and answer the questions. Now, so as I said, you get only the main ideas of a passage and an overall impression of what is there. So, how does it work? You quickly run your eyes over the text and find out the main ideas by identifying keywords contained in it. What are the steps? First of all, you must know what you're looking for in a text. If you see the slide, in small letters I have written, in a test of comprehension, read the questions first. This is not a hard and fast rule, but I'm just giving this example because it is very simple to give. I talked about a comprehension paper. What do children do normally? They start reading, 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 and then they don't know where to find it. And then they do a very silly thing. They look at the question and then they try to find out, can I find an exact answer to this? You may not. You may have to interpret, so they can't do it. So best thing to do is first read the questions, don't read the text. Once you have read the questions, then you skim through the passage and identify, try to find out where is the answer, or where is the possible answer to this. It may not give you an immediate answer, but it's a possible answer. How do you do this? Now, let's not talk about an examination on comprehension. Let's talk about the papers that you read or the various textbooks that you read, etc. They would always have a title. In yesterday's lecture about how to write a thesis, all these words had come: titles, subheadings, etc., etc. Well, chapters, you may say. There will be titles, chapters, headings, subheadings, etc., etc. When you read these, if such things are available, and generally they are in certain kind of papers, you will know what to expect in every section. So if what you want is in that section, you can concentrate a little more on that. It doesn't mean leave out everything else, but think about this. Next comes a very interesting thing. I remember on the first day, Dr. Apte had told you about the priest in the church who was delivering a sermon. And his idea was saying, tell the people what I want to say, tell them what I want to say, and tell them what I have told them I have said. Something similar, he said. It may not be the exact words. Now, this is exactly what any writing is like, any report especially. The beginning of that report will introduce the subject to you. When it introduces, it tells you, what am I going to say next? The last paragraph or the last section of the paper is going to tell you what I have said, or rather, it's a conclusion, it is a summary of all that. Generally, this is the pattern. And what happens in the middle? There are different ways. There may be chapters, there may be subheadings, there may be only one paragraph, there may be anything. But it is this middle part where it tells you what is the article all about. It gives you the details in different ways. Now, this particular thing is not new. It is not got something to do with writing a research paper. If you go back to your school teacher also told you this same thing about writing an essay. When you write an essay, there are three parts, the three main parts. It can be more subdivisions. So we go to the next thing. And it is for this reason that the next few steps help. First is, read the first sentence of each subsequent paragraph. You read the first paragraph in full, and perhaps the last paragraph in full that comes at the end. Once you've done that, read the first sentence of every subsequent paragraph. You need not read everything because that tells you where that particular paragraph is headed, what more is written, because that is the style of writing. You actually, every paragraph gives you one complete idea and then you go to the next. So at that time, you can underline, make notes of important words that you want. And while you're doing this, in all the paragraphs, please see whether there are any pictures, charts, graphs, tables, etc., etc., etc. Because as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's a very brief way of saying a lot of things. So keep a lookout for these things also and observe them, keep them in your mind. When you're doing this, also look for italicized or bold-faced words because those which have been highlighted, the author has highlighted or written them in italics, which means that these are very important. They may be words or phrases. And then, as I said, I've already said this, read the last paragraph in detail, but quickly. Don't waste time on it. Generally, this then contains a summary or a conclusion. Having done all this, it is necessary to retain the information that you have already gathered. You can make notes, you can underline so that you can go to the next step, which we will come to, which is scanning, where all this thing that you've done in skimming will help you. You can also, at some stage, decide that this particular piece is not for me and put it aside and read some other paper. Go to this. What happens when you skim? You should try to read at least 3 to 4 times faster than your normal reading speed. Mind you, what I'm talking about is not speed reading. We will talk about speed reading later. But here, what happens is when you're not reading every word, when you're just looking for important things, your speed automatically increases. Then, when you're doing this, please pay attention. Please don't just say that I'm just doing this skimming for fun, and you will get an idea of what the article is about. You may not know very great details, but you will definitely get an idea about it. One very important thing, see, it's a very good practice, very good habit to refer to a dictionary when you are in doubt. That's another thing my mother taught me. Because every time I did not know a meaning, I used to go and ask her, what is the meaning of this? She used to tell me, why are you asking me? The dictionary is on the table, pick it up. So you learn to find out for yourself. So dictionary is a very useful thing. But please avoid checking with dictionary when you're doing skimming. Unfamiliar words will come. And if you are using a dictionary at that time, interrupting your reading, you will be interrupting it and you will lose track. Therefore, generally speaking, when you are reading it, if there's an unfamiliar word, especially adjectives, if you do not know, if adjectives are always followed by a noun. Now, if you know the noun, because you're all scientists and therefore you know the scientific terminology, you know what the machine means. And if it says big machine and you don't know the meaning of big, from the rest of the sentences which talk about it, you will know that big has something to do with size. So please don't refer to a dictionary unnecessarily when you are doing this operation. Dictionary is very useful, keep it in your side. And when you're doing this, I mentioned in the earlier slide, please underline the keywords. What are the keywords? They could be many things, but the commonest ones are dates, places, figures, numerals, results, etc., etc. But you know, another very funny habit which children have, students have, the teacher says underline important things and they go and underline the whole book. If you underline everything, you are actually highlighting nothing. And underlining should help you highlight something. And therefore, when you're looking at it again, you know that this is an important thing. Now, here, I'm not going to teach you grammar over here because please don't wonder why I'm talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives. Well, nouns, words, verbs, adjectives, I'm looking at it not as parts of speech or as grammar over here. I'm looking at it as keywords. The key words in a written text are actually nothing but nouns, verbs, adjectives, because language is formed with this. These are some of the parts of speech. There are many others, prepositions, etc., which are not so important. On, above, etc., is only positioning. But, for example, reaction, going to, things like that, big, small, etc., are words which are important. Focus on them. Having said this, we come to what is called scanning. Scanning is the next technique. Now, as an example of scanning, we do scanning a lot of times. Whenever you want to make a Paytm thing or anything, you scan whatever is given to you. Well, that you understand what is scanning from there. There's also something like scanning when you want to make a copy of something, you scan it on the computer, or in medical terminology, you have what is called the CT scan, or even a simple X-ray. When you're doing, for example, any medical procedure, what really happens is, for example, you're doing an MRI, it is scanning you from head to foot. It is going and scanning every part of the body to find out if there is a problem somewhere. And that is exactly what scanning is when you read. Now, what is scanning? We do scanning to find the specific information. If you're looking at it, you go to a doctor and say, I've got a stomach ache. He touches you everywhere and then he says, look, I'll give you something, but we have to be sure. When he touches and gives you some medication, he has actually skimmed. He has guessed there are two, three possibilities that have happened. After some time, he says, go and do a sonography. And in the sonography, they find out that there is a calculus. Calculus means stone, okay, not the one from not the one from mathematics. Okay, that there's a calculus somewhere in your system. It may be in the kidney or it may be anywhere. There's a stone. And what happens? The scanning technique of what is called a what is it? The technique that we just used, the thing that we just used, not an MRI, whatever it is, tells the doctor that here is the problem. Now, skimming has already been done when you're reading, and now you are scanning, you're doing it in a more focused way to locate a particular fact or figure. You had suspected something in the medical checkup, and now you're going to look for specifically what is the possible thing. And it helps you to see whether the text mentions the subject that you are researching. What are you researching? Is that subject here? It is similar to here. I've given a very simple example, but I'll give you a technical example after that. It says it is similar to looking for a particular name in a telephone directory. Suppose I have a friend called Gangadhar Rao, and there will be many Raos in the telephone directory. I want to find out the telephone number of Gangadhar Raos. So, how do I look? I don't look at every name in the directory starting from the letter A and going to the letter Z. I go to G, but I don't go, I go to R, let us say. I go to R. Having gone to R, I don't look at what everything. I say, okay, after R is A. So, have I found A? So, I found RA and so many other things there. Okay, none of them is going to give me Rao until I go to O. When I say RAO, here it will begin with Rao. Okay, so you will find, oh my God, Rao is a very common name. You will find the whole thing full of Raos. So what do? You skip all the Raos and go to G. And in G, you follow the same system, GA, GAN, and so on and so forth. You may find many, many, many Gangadhars. But among the Gangadhars, you may have some more information about him and start looking for that. But even more you is when you're referring to a huge, big reference work like a book. Many of these books, especially on science and technology, one thing is you have a table of contents. The table of contents is not so easy to look for, but that's also useful. If you know broadly what you want, you look for that in the table of contents. But at the back of the book, there is what is called an index. This index is alphabetical. This index is alphabetical, and if you want to know the word gravity, I mean, you want to know something about Newton's law of gravity, you don't have to look for Newton's law of gravity, this and that and the other. If it is there, it may be available in the table of contents. But if it is not there, go to the index. Just take a keyword. Newton may be a keyword, but gravity also may be a keyword. Having got the keyword gravity, go to gravity, and then it will give you the word gravity with a whole lot of page numbers. That word gravity would have come in the book many times in different contexts. Not everything will be useful for you. But if from there, if you look at the page number and see this page number relates to what in the table of contents, you may be able to find what you want. It may be a trial and error, but your trial and error becomes much quicker than reading the whole book to find out something about Newton's law of gravity. Now you come next to scanning. You also scan when you already have a question in your mind and you read a passage only to find the answer and ignore all unrelated information. It is useful for writing research papers and when you must look through many articles and books to find the material you need. You can't read each and every book or each and every article, and therefore you scan through them, put them aside. Now, one of my jobs when I was working, I'm an industrial engineer, but later I went and became a trainer. I was in human resource. And in human resource, we did a lot of recruitment. When we did recruitment, what did we do? There were innumerable applications coming in. So we began scanning with certain keywords. I want an MTech. I want an MTech in production. So I remove all the other BTechs and MTechs in mechanical and MTech in civil or MTech in this and that and the other come to this. And I say, now I will scrutinize this. How many years of experience? How much of this, that? So I look through that, even for a simple thing like that. And definitely it helps in articles and books for to find the material you need. Details you do later. So, in brief, I will conclude by saying scanning is nothing but skimming to locate a particular fact or figure. It's basically the same thing. A little detailed and focused skimming is called scanning. And you're doing it with a specific purpose, not for just accepting or rejecting an article. Strategies. First, define the information you're looking for. Define it, meaning, please understand what you want. You can't just go and say that I will scan, I will go on looking and find something interesting. You have to start with somewhere to begin. What exactly do I want? And then anticipate how the answer will appear and what clues you might use to locate the answer. The clues may be many. One thing that I told you is keywords, those clues. And how are you going to find it? You have to anticipate. Nobody is going to tell you this. But you have read so many other things, you get some kind of idea and think, how can this answer appear? What clues can I use? And how can I locate? I gave you these possibilities through the telephone directory and through the index. So do that. For example, if you are looking to buy a watch, please don't look in a shoe shop. You will get only shoes there. You will not get a watch there. It's exactly in the same way. If you're looking for a certain date, if you're researching history, you want to know what is the date of the Battle of Plassey. And you've done whatever you can. And if you're looking for all kinds of things like words, keywords, you will find it much longer to go for this. Well, you know it is Battle of Plassey, so you can start with the word Plassey, no doubt. But if you're looking for dates, look for numbers. Don't look for other things. Look for numbers. It's exactly like don't look for a watch in a shoe shop. Now, there are headings and other aids which help you to identify which sections might contain the information you're looking for. Then, selectively read and skip through the sections of the passages. Selectively. When you're skimming, you've already decided what you want to select. So, you read those parts in detail, and all other parts you can just either glance through, skim, or even skip. Leave that alone. Now, how do you scan? I told you about keywords and I told you about parts of speech, nouns, verbs, adjectives, etc. Now, here it is. How do they help? Nouns like problem, solution, idea, goal, improvement, danger. These are very simple nouns which I have given. When these do come into technology, these do come into every discipline, but there will be others which are closer related to your area of research. You identify those nouns or think about those nouns. What am I doing? And that is how you select your keywords. Like you say, select things like Newton, you select things like gravity. They are both nouns. Now, verbs like must tell you that it is compulsory. You need to do it. You must do it. You should do it. Can. This is a possibility. There's a possibility. You may do it. You may not do it. Is it better to do it or not? You will have to analyze to find out. Help. Well, if you follow this particular procedure, it will help you in arriving at your results. So if the word help comes somewhere, like the sentence that I just spoke, it may come somewhere in the text. So you know that what is following or what has preceded this is very important. I want this kind of help. Ensure if you do such and such thing, it will definitely happen. So you will ensure the results. Increase, decrease, offer, measure, change. So many words. They're all verbs. Adjectives and adverbs like probably. Well, it's probable. It's more than possible. Yes, the chance is good, but still it is a probability. It's a question of statistics. It's a game of chance. So, therefore, should I or should I not do this in my experiment? Is something that you will think. And if you do it, you also know that it is a probable outcome and you can see that I've received this outcome or not. So it's a trial and error without. Now, if you're not going to add something to something, what happens? If you're going to eliminate something, definitely possible, possible. Possible is not as strong as probable, but both are statistical. Probability is actually talked in the subject of statistics. Possibility is a little more, as you say, in the air. Better, worse, etc. This process is better than that. Or no, it is actually worse, so on and so forth. Now, you will know from so much that both skimming and scanning are to be done together. And we have talked about we are going to recapitulate the steps. First, you skim through the passage to know what it is about. And here is an example which is not from the books. There is a room and the door is closed. You have come there and you open the door and you look inside. What do you see? You can't know everything that is there. But when you look inside, you get a general idea. There is a table here, there's a chair there, somebody is sitting at the computer, there is a cupboard, there is this, there is that. But everything does not go directly into your brain. You just get a general idea of the layout. When you scan the passage, of all these items which I talked about, you're picking up that item which interests you, which you are looking for. Here, what you do is you enter the room. You glance over the objects which you've already done, but then you begin to identify those things which interest you. For example, this room is a shop which is selling all these things. I need very badly a laptop. So I will go to the laptop section. I've already found it. And then I will look at all the laptops. Then again, I will say, what kind of functions do I need in that laptop? And then I start looking. Now, then you read this. All this, I'm giving you physical examples. You have to translate this into your reading. It's similar to reading. When you come to the next step, you are reading the passage in detail. You have skimmed, you have scanned, you have got a good idea of what to look for. So here comes the actual reading. Read it in detail, take time off. But when reading in detail, there are other mistakes that we make. We will not discuss it just now. We will talk about it when we come to the chapter on speed reading, which is later. Now, when you read in detail, you are studying it well. Now, this is like in the same room, you have examined the objects you identified in detail to learn more about them. You find a laptop which interests you. The make is Lenovo. Having found Lenovo, you start looking at it to know what functions are there, how does it operate, what kind of memory does it have, what does it have here, what does it have there. You start doing all those things, and that is what you do with what you read in the book or in the passage there. Having done this, you must remember how this helps. If your skimming is effective, you will get an idea of where to find the information while scanning. You can scan directly, not that you can't, but, and you can read directly, you need not even scan. But if you've skimmed, you get a better idea to scan, and scanning helps you in better reading. Then you can underline the important facts, etc., while skimming to help you to scan quickly. And when you're scanning, you will notice keywords, you underline those or note them down for detailed reading later. Now you read that, and when you read in a detailed way, you will read only those papers or those books which are of use to you, and possibly in that also you will read those items which are useful to you, because the book may give you a lot of unrelated matter to your research. So you have identified what you want in the research and you go there. So you know what that author wants to say. These are very simple things. If you want to skim and scan well, you must have some good habits, and you must develop the habit of reading long texts regularly. And this is a childhood habit. If you have not cultivated that habit, cultivate it now. It is not only textbooks, it is not only research papers. If you get into the habit of reading constantly, you will improve your reading skills. And again, I will recapitulate what was said earlier. The first and last paragraphs of the text are what you have to pay attention to for obvious reasons. The first paragraph tells you what it is about. The last paragraph gives you a complete summary of the whole thing. Please don't confuse the word summary here with words like synopsis, abstract, and so on and so forth, which we will deal with later. but but that is not what I mean by summary. By summary here, I mean it's a kind of abstract, true, but it is a different kind of abstract. It is a summary of all that you have read. When you read that, you get a general idea. Next, you have to understand the text better. You have to ask questions. And there are 6 important questions. I do not know how many of you here have studied a subject called work study, method study, etc., which are branches or which are subjects of basic industrial engineering. If you have, you will understand a technique for processes which we call the questioning technique. There are 20 questions. I'm not going into those details. I could have drawn a chart also, but I'm not, because the subject is different. But the basic questions there are 6. You know, what, who, where, why, when, and how. Rudyard Kipling had written a beautiful poem on this. I'll read that out to you later, but that tells you what it is. These questions, if you ask, you get answers to many things. So keep asking these questions and try to find the answers in what you are reading, or find out those answers by discussion and by more reading. Last but not the least is your dictionary thing. Don't waste time with difficult words. Guess their meanings from the context. It does not mean don't refer to a dictionary. Refer to them when you have the time afterwards. Note down that word if you want, but don't waste time searching for that. That is, don't waste time scanning a dictionary, because it will be exactly the same thing, scanning. Don't waste time scanning there because you're moving away from the main thing. But very often, if you are a good reader and if you learn to read properly, you may be able to guess the meaning from the context. You see, it's like this. I studied in Telangana and I speak Telugu very fluently today, but I did not know Telugu. How did I learn Telugu? People told, I started watching the most rotten Telugu films. If you watch good films, you don't love. Okay. If you watch rotten films, there's a lot of dialogue in it. I started watching all the bad Telugu films. And I learned the language. My friends in my hostel used to tell me, "Have you gone mad? Why are you going to that? You won't understand anything." I said, "I've understood more than you because I was trying to find out." So I found some word in Telugu which I know. उसके आगे पीछे जो है, what comes before and after that, I make out the meaning from the context. And I've got the visual thing, I've got the acting. I know what they're talking about. So I learned the language and I'm fairly fluent in that language. So go to the next. This is a poem of Rudyard Kipling. I'll just read it out quickly. It's not completely relevant to your reading thing, but I'll read it out because it's interesting. But let's not analyze and waste time on it. Rudyard Kipling says, "I keep 6 honest serving men." I'll explain the first verse. "They taught me all I knew. Their names were what and why and when and how and where and who." These are the 6 questions which give you the answer to whatever you want if they are answered. And if you are following those, you will be able to get a lot of information. Okay, I'll just quickly rush through this. I send them over land and sea, I send them east and west, but after they have worked for me, I give them all a rest. What does it mean? I don't confine these words only to my work here in Pune or in Hyderabad or in Bombay. I go everywhere, either physically or by reading. I go everywhere, all over the world. And wherever I go, I ask these questions. But I don't waste too much time with it. Those fellows also are very good people. And they also need rest. After they have done their work, I say, okay, now you relax. I let them rest from 9 till 5, for I am a busy man then. 9 to 5 is my office time. I do ask these questions in my work, but I don't ask hundreds of times for every little thing because I am busy. And when I am busy, I want to rest those people, as well as breakfast, lunch, and tea, and they are hungry men. Okay, now, here comes the thing. For different folk have different views. Not everyone will agree with me. Some people think it is very different. I know a person small, she keeps 10 million serving men who get no rest at all. Is not what, why, when, and six, not six. There are hundreds and millions of people, or hundreds and millions of questions that this person has. But then, when you have so many questions, you don't at all get rest. These 6 questions are enough to answer anything in the world. She sends them abroad on her own affairs. From the second she opens their eyes, 1 million's house, 2 million wares, and 7 million wise. Now, where I made a mistake a little while ago. I thought 10 million questions are there. It's not 10 million questions. It's the same six questions. Each question is asked a million times. That gets very irritating. Little children go on asking why. You have to be very patient with them. It's very nice they're asking, but then you do get fed up, isn't it? How many times are you going to ask this? So keep that limited, keep that within whatever it is. This is what Rudyard Kipling said. I don't know whether you know who Rudyard Kipling is. The book Jungle Book was written by him. He wrote also a very beautiful poem called If. He lived in India. He was in fact born in India, and then he went there. His father was the principal of the JJ School of Art in Bombay in the British days. Okay, next. We are summarizing this with the do's and don'ts of skimming and scanning. Just read through these. I'll keep it on for some time. If you need any help in understanding, please ask me. But it's very simple. This is a recapitulation of the whole thing. I said that because I need a little rest, about 2 minutes more. That's all. Can I change the slide? Okay, I think everyone has read. I'm going to the next slide.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, when you skim and scan, be focused. You see, there's something called an attention span. Don't stretch your attention span. What is an attention span? Let me go back to a simple example. When you were school children, do you remember how long was a lecture? Lecture is what we call it in college. How long was a period of instruction? How long did your teacher speak to you? It was about 30 to 35 minutes. After that, the subject would change or you would get a break. When you went to college, maybe that 30 minutes became 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes. When you went to engineering college, at least in the engineering college where I was teaching, each session was 1 hour. Now all of you have graduated, become masters in various things, are working for your PhD or are already PhDs. That means you've grown much older and you gained much more experience. And here I am tired. I don't know about you, but I'm physically tired, not mentally. Okay, because I'm old. Okay, now what happens with you? Here I am talking to you for 2 hours. Some years ago, you would have said, "Arey, kya hai, he's talking for 2 hours, he's boring us, etc." But today, you must be probably, I hope so, you're sitting and listening to me. Why? Because your span of attention has grown. You have grown up, you have learned so much, and you are able to focus at least to a certain extent. Otherwise, I did give you a 5 minute or 2 minute break just now. That was to remove the monotony, and that having happened, you are back and you are able to focus on what I'm saying. So when you skim and scan, it is important that you should have an adequate attention span. And then if you are tired, if it is too much, just rest for a couple of minutes, 2 3 minutes, and start all over again. But please don't lose your focus. So here the cartoon is saying, this fellow is telling that chap, I started to read the headline, but then my mind wandered. They're sitting in a classroom, and when the teacher is talking about what? About the parallelogram of forces or some such subject in school, well, here I am sitting, I'm a student over here, and my attention goes to when I go home. my mother will have made something very nice for me to eat, or I'm going to have a nice game of football, or there is such and such movie, and so on and so forth. That is, don't lose your attention span. Be focused on the reading that you're doing. And we now come to what is called speed reading. What does speed reading mean? Reading very fast? How fast? So fast that when you go to a library and take a book, borrow a book on speed reading, the librarian tells you this book on speed reading is due back in 10 minutes. Chalo, take this home and bring it back in 10 minutes. It's a book on speed reading. You should speed read. Well, this is just a joke. This is a cartoon. It does not really work that way. Speed reading does not mean that you finish a book in 10 minutes. But speed reading means reading faster and more effectively. Speed does not mean for the sake of speed. Speed means reading faster because you become more effective when you read fast than when you are slow. Many people think the other way. I had a teacher in college who used to tell us, he was a mathematics teacher. Normally, mathematics, you start looking at formulae, you start looking at derivations and so many other things which need a certain kind of reading. But he used to tell us, before you do all that, please read the textbook as if it is a novel. I never understood what it is, but now I know what it is. He was telling us to do all the skimming, scanning, etc., and then do speed reading. Do speed reading. So we go to what is speed reading? How much do you think is the average speed reading of reading? I'm sure many of you know the answer. Some of you may want to guess the answer, but let me tell you what experts say. Top readers, very, very top readers, who are only about not even 1% of all the readers in the world, may be able to achieve a speed of 1,000 words per minute. But getting a speed of 1,000 words per minute, is it good enough? How much of it do you assimilate? How much do you comprehend? So, 1,000 words per minute with 85% comprehension may be good. So, maybe if you make it 90 words per minute, the comprehension may go up, may not go up. That's not the point. But the point is, both your speed as well as your level of comprehension should be good. And speed reading helps you to comprehend better, but it doesn't mean read fast for the sake of reading fast. A majority of the readers who are not part of this 1% can read just about 200 words per minute. And the typical comprehension level of that may be only about 60%. Please look, these are statistical figures, they are not exact figures, they're just random numbers, but it gives an idea of where we are headed. Now, it is possible to learn to improve our reading speed by following some techniques. There are actually courses which teach you speed reading. I personally have not undergone that course. Whatever reading I do at a good speed. I have not measured it. And I am not interested also in doing that because I am not competing. I am happy with what it is, and that is what you should be. But if you really want to improve it, I do not know that science. But if you really want to improve it, I'm not advising you because I don't know if it is good, but there are courses, people conduct courses on speed reading also. You may think about it. Now, I'm keeping this passage open for a minute or so. Read it and understand what it says. Okay, I'm changing the slide. Here's a cartoon. I talked to you about being focused. Here is this boy who is reading a book. Is he reading? He's telling you what he's doing. I'm not actually reading. I've been staring at this page for an hour. If you are not focused, or if you are not reading fast enough, Very often, the whole page goes blank. That must have happened to all of us. There's something called a writer's block. I say there can also be a reader's block. Your mind gets completely blocked. So he says, I've been just staring at this page for an hour. It's a whole lot of letters of the alphabet jumping up and down, black and white, and I don't know what is happening. This can happen, and I'm sure it has happened to most of you. It happens to me also. Now, this is what happens when you can't, when you get tired, when you're not focused, and when you're not reading at the right pace. Now, having understood this, answer these questions to yourselves. When I am doing a contact program, I ask these questions and I listen to the answers. Since this is an online program, I'll just talk about it and then let's see what it is. When you were reading, did you stop at every, please answer these to very honestly. Did you, this is not a competition. Did you stop at every word or every two or three words? Did you go back to the left while reading? What happens is, for example, look below. There's a sentence which says, if any of these happened when you read, etc. Did you read like this? If, if any, if any of, if any of these, if any of these happened, if any of these happened when, and so on and so forth. Very often, this is an exaggeration, but more or less like this, it can happen. Did that happen? Did you go to the left? And did your reading speed affect your comprehension or your understanding of what you read? That is, did you need to read again and again to understand what you're reading? This going back and forth, which I said, technically the word for that is visual regression. You see, your eyes are regressing from one position to another and getting back, and that kind of thing. Now, did you read all this? If any of these things happened when you read, it would have slowed down your speed. Slow reading affects your comprehension of what you read. This means that to be a good reader, you must increase your reading speed. Your speed should be adequate so that you understand well. Now, what are the characteristics of a group, of a good reader? Do not read every word separately. When we speak every word separately. If we are reading at the speed of speaking, we are actually reading every word separately. Good readers do not read every word separately. That's how it goes. Read in chunks called sense groups. Good is important, good readers is important. Now, here, let's not go for this sentence. Now, they read what are called sense groups. I'll give you a simpler example of that. You see, if you go to Gujarat, there's a big statue, the biggest in the world, the highest in the world. What is the name of that statue? It is Statue of Unity, right? Statue of Unity. How do we write it? There are three words: Statue of Unity. But when you read it, you read those three words in one chunk, in one group: Statue of Liberty or Statue of Unity. Read it as that. That is called a sense group. Statue of Unity makes sense, while the words statue, of, and unity make three different senses. So the groups together, you read that. That helps you faster reading. Then good readers read, their eyes move very quickly over the matter that they read. They do not go back and forth. And importantly, they do not vocalize the words that they read. You will notice that some readers, they read word for word even mentally, but in some, there are two other types of people. One is mentally they read every word separately. The second one is that They read every word aloud, or maybe softly, but actually they make the sound. The third is the sound may not come, but the lips are moving. If any of these happen, do not vocalize. Vocalize means use your voice. But using your voice without using your voice is somewhat what people do. They read, the voice doesn't come out, but every word is read separately. Now read the same passage where we have put some slashes and I've tried to make some sense groups. There are 23 stops. You stop at these. This is not a perfect passage for sense groups. But look at this, read through. You don't have to say read through. This passage, the adjective this is important for passage, so it's put together. Similarly, very quickly. Okay? And is a separate thing from the ideas expressed. One, two, three, four words from the ideas expressed. What is important there is just ideas is important, but a little more detail from the ideas expressed. Each of these is a sense word, and so on and so forth. It tells you various things. Now we have got here 23 stops. 23 times we have stopped. Now we shall go to the next one where there are two similar things. Look at the one on the left. It is the same thing with 16 stops. And again on the right, once again, it is the same thing with 12 stops. So the first one is pretty long. Read through this passage very quickly. Not everyone can read such big things, so maybe it is necessary to say read through this passage very quickly, but you can also try to read through this passage very quickly. And from the ideas expressed, gather the topic. This process is known as skimming, and so on and so forth. But you will also realize one thing, that there are many words here which are not necessary to understand basically what it means. They are there only to help you get better informed and also to be grammatically correct. Look at this. If I just say read this passage quickly, is it not enough? And gather the topic. Now, here, this is important, but you need not say that. The process is what we are looking for, is skimming. The process is skimming. Now, this process is skimming is important. This may have been highlighted. When you scan, so scan is important. Scan for specific information. Not when you scan, you're looking for specific pieces of information. Important details. Scan for specific information, important details, important ideas. Identifying these ideas is known as identifying ideas is scanning. It makes sense even there. So, when you're reading in sense groups, there are two things that are happening in the process. One is you're combining letters as one unit. The second thing is you're combining words as one unit, and you may also, if you are even faster than that, eliminate words that comes by practice to identify important words. I am not saying you can do this overnight, but this is how the mind catches information faster. Remember, the mind is nothing but a highly sophisticated computer. The computer only picks up data. If you give it garbage, it will give you garbage back. So I don't say that the other words are garbage, but if you give all that, it takes a little time for it to retain everything. Okay, so we go to the next. Practice makes perfect. If you keep practicing, you will improve. Develop the reading habit, gain knowledge, and practice speed reading. If you do this, you may be able to achieve an average reading speed of 750 or even more. Well, even if you achieve 600, it doesn't matter. We are not in a competition. We are not in a race. It is not a speed reading race that somebody may organize. Such things also are there. But that is not what it is. We are doing it for practical reasons. Now, there's only half an hour left, but I'll show you this. Yeah, that's enough. I'll show you a film. Okay? The film
Only
summarizes
6 days
everything.
master Vedic mathematics. Don't
This is an
calculate slow.
advertisement. Don't worry, I'm going to skip it.
See how older students solve questions. Is your bookshelf full of books that you've never read because you don't have the time? I'm going to show you how to speed read. Read all those books on your bookshelf faster than you ever thought possible. Check this out. The average person reads 200 to 250 words per minute. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to double, triple, or even quadruple that with these very simple steps. The first key to reading faster is number one, when you get the book, read the table of contents, read the review, read the chapter summaries. These are often the most important things that the author wants you to get from their text. So by reading these, your brain will be aware and looking for them as you read. Next, don't sub-vocalize. In other words, whenever you read, don't say the words to yourself. Don't read to yourself. Even if you're saying them very softly to yourself, the act of saying them is going to slow your reading speed down. Do not sub-vocalize the words. Some people will even chew gum to keep themselves from saying the words as they read because there's no other way that they can fight that. Studies also show that if you listen to music, especially classical music, when you read, it's going to improve your reading speed. I don't know why this is. Maybe because classical music relaxes your brain, but whatever the reason is, listening to music while you read, it has been shown to speed up your reading speed. So get some Mozart or Beethoven and read faster. This next step of forcing your eye to move across the page by using your finger or a pen is the most important part of speed reading. Whenever you see a sentence and the sentence says, "The boy ran to the store," most people will read that sentence this way. The boy ran. The boy ran to the boy ran to the store. In other words, it's called visual regression. What your eye is doing, is it's going back and it's reading all the words that you've read before. And it's doing it so fast that you don't even realize that you're doing it. And that is the biggest thing that slows you down when reading. It's the visual regression, your eye bouncing all over the page. So instead, whenever you read, take your finger or take a pen or a pencil or a marker or a highlighter and read with that and force your finger or force that pen across the page. That forcing the pen or your finger across the page and then force your eye to follow your finger, that alone should double your reading speed because your eye is not bouncing all around. The next key to speed reading is learning to see groups of words. For example, if you see the three words Statue of Liberty, you've seen it so many times and you know it goes together. Your eye is trained to see that phrase as a group, Statue of Liberty. You're not reading Statue of Liberty as individual words. If you can learn to do that and learn to see in groups of words as you read, it is going to speed up your reading speed. The next step to speed reading is to read the first sentence of each paragraph and read the last sentence of each paragraph, but kind of zoom through the middle. And here's why. The first sentence of each paragraph often tells you what it's going to be about, and then the last sentence of each paragraph sums it up. And if you read those two and then just kind of zoom through the middle, you will probably get the gist of that paragraph. And the final step to speed reading is go faster than you think is possible. When you're using your finger or that marker and you're pushing your eye across the page and forcing your eye to follow your finger, go faster than you think is possible. You will be amazed at how much you can remember and retain and the speeds that you can go at. But the important thing is to push yourself and go faster than you think is possible, and you will be reading faster than you ever thought before. One of the biggest things in speed reading is you need to know how fast you're currently reading so you can gauge your progress. Click the link right here here and I'll show you how to calculate your reading speed, or you can click the link down below in the description. Now go on, guys, go ahead and click that link. It's absolutely free.
Okay. Uh, can somebody help me get back to the original thing? I don't want to be. I want to have a question answer session here.
Okay, sir. Okay.
1 minute. Let me see if there's anything more here. Um, okay, I can have the question answer even like this. No problem about that. F5, right? Okay, F5. Uh, does anyone have any questions at this stage?
Is there any question from audience? Please ask.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, as you mentioned, there are various techniques to read fast.
yeah.
So, is there any techniques to remember like
Ah,
what the
okay.
content what we?
Okay. Okay. Good question. Good question. We will be talking about it in module 2. Okay. Which is tomorrow. We will be talking about retention techniques in module 2. Actually, to answer your question very briefly, I'm not an expert at it, but some things which I do and some things which I have read about and seen are what we will be talking about. There are systems called mnemonics. M is silent, mnemonics, whatever, mnemonics. Now, this thing, mnemonics are techniques of remembering, and we will deal with it when we come to the second chapter, second unit, which will be tomorrow. Uh, does that answer your question? It's not a complete answer, but you will see a lot more tomorrow. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, I
okay?
got it, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
yes, yes. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Any other? Any other question? You see, we still have time, we can have questions. But in case there are no questions, we have got half an hour more. And I was just thinking, with your permission and with the permission of the organizers, I may start Unit 2, Module 2 right now, because that has got a much longer duration, and we will be able to make up some time tomorrow if it is okay. Otherwise, we'll see about tomorrow. Okay. Are there any more questions? Because questions are more important now than making use of the other thing. Any feedback, any questions, any comments which you want to
Hello,
make? You can share your
sir.
experiences. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody's
Sir, one
asking.
more. Yeah, yeah, sir.
Yeah.
One more question from my side.
Yeah.
Sir,
What is
how
your
much
name?
time?
Identify yourself, please.
Sir, my name is Saddam. Saddam Hussain.
Okay. Okay. Yes,
Sir,
Saddam.
if sir, like how much time we should spend on this particular skill set, and what will be the time duration? In order to see the results, how much time it will take, sir?
Uh,
Speed reading in terms of speed reading.
Speed reading. See,
Yeah.
speed reading, if you undergo a course on speed reading, which I personally feel is not necessary, because the idea here was just to introduce this to you. But if you undergo a course on speed reading, the experts who they undertake that course will be able to tell you how much time precisely. But I will tell you one thing, that this is a long process. It comes from being a little conscious and doing that, and it is an ongoing process. As you read more and more, your speed improves. Now what happened is, when I have delivered this lecture to you, I have delivered this lecture based on two pieces of data which are in my mind. One is preparing for this, and referring to various material on this, I've got something that has given me in a proper scientific way how to put it across. But really speaking, it has come with only experience. What really happened is, and I have only to thank my mother for it, as I said, from my school days, she used to be after me, pado, 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 and she did not tell me pado, pado for this reason. ये नहीं था. She was telling me you should read more than your school books because you must understand what is happening everywhere and this and that. And from that, I developed all this all by myself. I don't know my speed. I don't know my speed, but read more scientifically, more out of practice than out of theoretically experimenting. This experimentation is very little in my part. It is an ongoing time process. It is actually a lifelong activity. I hope this answers your question. But if you want quick fixes, there are people who teach you how to do this fast. Okay?
Yeah, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? If there aren't any questions, I'll go to the next one. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Please, please. Yes. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. That gives me a lot of confidence because it is true that I am more energetic than people of my age. I'm approaching 80. Okay, I'm 77 today. But I was very afraid about this course because I've just recovered from angioplasty. And for about 1 month or something, I was not even able to talk. So I was not sure. So, one thing is, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to all the organizers for inviting me here. I mentioned this earlier also to Ashwini that you'll have to bear with me, but I am myself happy that I am able to do this. Thanks a lot. And it is all with your blessings that it is happening because I like to be with people. Okay. I'll go to the next slide now. Thank you very much for being patient. And maybe in the next 15 minutes or so, we'll complete a little bit of the next module. Okay. First of all, we are going to skill module, reading skills, module 2, the subject continues. So when you go to module 2, well, let's say I may recapitulate this also tomorrow, or I may go from the next slide. We'll start with improving comprehension. Now, this is one of the very important things that happens when you read. It is necessary for us to understand what we are reading. People read, people are very good at English or Marathi or whatever language. But ultimately, what really happens is that at the end of it, how much have they retained? How much have they comprehended? Now, somebody asked me, I think it was Saddam who asked me, yes. Somebody asked me, how do you comprehend? Not how do you comprehend? How do you retain? The next part of this section will be retention, but right now you will retain only if you comprehend. But the first step is comprehension, understanding what you have read, and this is very important because very often you notice when people want to write an examination, they memorize everything and go. And if you ask them any question, they don't know the answer, but they get 95% marks in 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 some descriptive paper. They get 95% marks or more. Mathematics getting 100% marks is no big deal, but even then, there also they memorize the formulae. Like for example, so many children tell me that algebra is easier than geometry. I say, sorry, you are saying that because you are memorizing everything and it is easier to memorize algebra. You cannot memorize theorems, you know. But in geometry, you just have to follow logic. So we go to the next. What do we mean by comprehension? In simple words, comprehension is the level of understanding of a text or message. Now, how do you comprehend? You require a skill and an ability by which whatever information you get is processed in your brain to give you its meaning. To give you its meaning. In other words, there is a kind of a biological dictionary in your brain which converts these codes into meaning. Quite the same thing as the logic that a computer uses. When you feed something, it does something. The difference is that the human brain is much, much, much more powerful and bigger than a computer, and the limitations are much less, whereas there are limitations in a computer. The only thing is the human brain, after some time, gets filled and then it gets tired. Now, what you need is an appropriate vocabulary. That is one of the inputs that is required to comprehend. If you do not know the language, there's no point. And you have to infer the meanings from the context. And that is effective reading comprehension. For that, word recognition is important. Word recognition is important. लफ्जों को पहचानना, शब्दों को पहचानना is important. And if that is not easy for you, you are going to waste too much time to read individual words. You will go on looking at words, you will try to say, what is the meaning of this? What is that? What is that? Then, of course, things like this help. When you're reading, if you've understood out of 10 words, if you've understood 9, don't bother about that one word. You may understand it if you are reading effectively. You may understand it from the context. That is the idea of reading. Now, if all these things happen, it interferes with your comprehension. Now, here are some tips. No need for an elaboration, I'll just read them out. Get into the reading habit. Read, read, read. Not only for your PhD, but just be a good reader. Read both for knowledge and for pleasure. Read a novel. Read something on sports. Read everything. And of course, read because you want to learn something. And in your case, read because you want to do citations, references, and you want to enhance the value of your research. Eliminate distractions from your environment. If you're sitting in a very noisy area, please move away from there. Find a nice quiet place, a beautiful place where everything is cool and everything is very nice, and you can sit there with a book and read. Improve your vocabulary. People ask me very often, Sir, how can I improve my vocabulary? I say the only way you can improve your vocabulary is by reading. They don't believe me. I also do not know whether that is so, because I did not go through any course for vocabulary improvement. But practice and an open mind helps you to improve it. And you don't need a very big vocabulary to understand. I don't know the exact number, but it is much less than what you feel. I think just having 1,000 to 2,000 words in your mind is enough to understand a language. Then come the difficult words, maybe you can see them afterwards. Look up the dictionary. Most importantly, put yourself in the author's position. Don't look at it from your perspective, your sanskars, your training, your all that. Because you are an engineer, you will be thinking from an engineering perspective. He is not an engineer, he has got another perspective, and it does not mean that he is wrong. He has a perspective. Look at it from his perspective. We will see more slides on this, how people misunderstand. I'll give you an example. You see, I always give this example. There is a curved wall. There's a curved wall. Okay? And there are two men standing on either side of this curve. And they start a fight. They cannot see each other because the wall is very high, but they can hear each other. They start a fight. The first man says, "This wall is convex." The second man says, "Nonsense, this wall is concave." You tell me who is right? Somebody will say that both are right. Well, that's a half answer. That's not a correct answer. What actually happens is both of them are telling you facts. But the question is, are they telling the truth? You can know the truth only if you sit in a helicopter and go up and look down. You will know the truth. And that answer is only a question of perception. आप कहाँ खड़े हो उस पर निर्भर है. It depends on where you stand. So put yourself in the author's position. The author is standing on the convex side, you are standing on the concave side. Why are you fighting with him? Try to understand what it is. Ask questions about the author's intention. I know the author is not with you. You can't ask him directly, but when you're reading, those questions have to come to your mind. Why is he saying this? What is his intention? What does he want to convey? Not what I understand from it from my own training. I am a very intelligent fellow, so I will think in a certain way. Of course, you are intelligent, but it does not mean he is a fool. Reread if necessary. Now, this is very important. I did not mention it earlier. Read something 2 3 times to understand. And if you still don't understand, discuss with knowledgeable people. There are people who know this subject. Discuss with them. Take notes and summarize to refer later. Now, summarize does not mean write an abstract. That's also a summarization. But summarize in your mind all that you have read. Now, comprehension requires knowledge of the language. This poster is something that the cartoonist R.K. Lakshman drew maybe in the 1960s. Most of you were born, all of you, I think, were born much after that. So you may not immediately understand what it is. So I will explain. You may have heard or read that in the 60s there was a very big agitation in South India, especially Tamil Nadu, where the government had tried to force Hindi upon them and they were agitating. It is very interesting also if you go back into history. Before independence, there was something that they had started. Congress party and various others, Congress was not a party in those days, various others had started Hindi Prachar. And did you know, very few people know this, Hindi Prachar was most successful in Tamil Nadu. In fact, many people from Tamil Nadu knew better Hindi than people in UP. It was like that back in the 40s and 50s. What made the Tamil people anti Hindi suddenly? There are many political reasons. They felt that they were being bossed over and all that. And there were students had agitated. They had agitated so much that there was violence. They used to go about breaking things. They used to destroy public property and all that. Finally, the government, I don't remember who the prime minister was, probably Indira Gandhi. It was after Lal Bahadur Shastri's time. Finally, the government gave up and said, okay, there will be no Hindi. English will continue. It will not be compulsory. You can learn it if you want, but we will not force you to learn it. Now, see this picture. There's a student throwing stones. I told you about violence. Then see who else is there. This is the man in the lungi who has got his hand to his chin with glasses is Mr. Bhaktavatsalam, who was the chief minister of Tamil Nadu at that time. It was called Madras in those days. And on the right, with his hand on the head, can you guess who he is? I think you may know because he was the last Governor General of India, the first Indian Governor General, who was the Governor General from 1947, succeeded Mountbatten, and he remained the Governor General till Rajendra Prasad was elected president. So he was like the president of India. He is C. Rajgopalachari. C. Rajgopalachari and C. Rajgopalachari was instrumental in this Hindi Prachar. He had done a lot of good work. So he's absolutely fed up. Ye kya ho raha hai? But I've just told you this story because I wanted to tell the story. We have got time. We'll go 1 or 2 slides more. Now, there's some politician behind Bhaktavatsalam who is saying the boy can't read English either. Now they put up an assurance, the government is giving an assurance, no Hindi, English to continue, no compulsion to learn Hindi, no Hindi, English forever, etc., etc. Ye likha hai. And this student is throwing stones at that. So he says, the boy can't read English either. Therefore, he cannot comprehend. He does not know what we are trying to say. Therefore, this assurance is of absolutely no use. The boy is this. So that is what it means. Comprehension requires knowledge of the language. Then one or two slides, and then we'll call it a day. Reading between the lines. Reading between the lines means interpreting the real or hidden meaning in a text or any communication. Sometimes people do it deliberately. They say something which might, on the face of it, mean something else. And then actually they have a hidden meaning. Sometimes they do it because the words they have used carry more than one meaning. And there can be many reasons. They may not do it purposely. Sometimes they do it purposely. You should be able to do that. Sometimes it happens because the two people are from two different professions and the word particularly means two different things in their professions. So put yourself in the writer's shoes. The contents of a letter or contract or any document can be ambiguous or unclear. Again, sometimes they purposely put this, especially in legal documents. They always write it in such a way that it sounds very good, but if you go against it, they always have an argument to say we are right. Or sometimes the language itself is unclear. He has not written it very clearly, no clarity. Ambiguous means something has more than one meaning. It can be deliberate, it can be the way the writer or reader perceive it. For example, I gave you the example of looking on two sides of a curved wall. It's a perspective, both are right. But when one fellow says it in one way, the other fellow does not agree. Therefore, make sure to look at the big picture when reading between the lines. Therefore, don't just stand on one side of the wall, take the helicopter, go up and look down. And when you look down, you're seeing the big picture. Big picture. You're seeing even the sides, you're seeing the mountains nearby and everything. When you're standing in front of that, you see in Hindi we have an expression kuएं का मेंढक. The fellow is sitting in the well, that frog is sitting in the well and saying, this is the whole world. Come out. Dunya alag hai, dunya bahut badi hai. And pay attention to the words and context to understand the intent of communication. What does the author intend to say, not what you think that he is saying? There's another thing, there can be certain words which have many meanings. At the same time, there can be idioms which people do not know the meaning of. Now, here is another R.K. Lakshman cartoon where this fellow has gone for a job interview and the people who are interviewing him have asked him, good morning, please come in, draw a chair and sit down. So our friend has started drawing the chair on the floor. Now the word draw has two meanings. One thing, draw means make a picture, and the other meaning of the word draw is to pull. The horse is drawing the cart. It does not mean कि घोड़ा गाड़ी की तस्वीर बना रहा है. It means घोड़ा गाड़ी को खींच रहा है. That is what it means. So this is what he has said. Now, a little more time and we'll be at the end. Now, I don't know whether we have time for this. We'll start by watching this film tomorrow. Okay? We'll start
Yes,
by
sir.
watching this film tomorrow and then we'll go to other things in this. And thank you very much for whatever you have said. Now, I think I can take a few questions if anyone still has any questions. Are there any questions?
Any questions, please ask.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for being very patient listeners. And I hope you liked what it is. There is a lot to learn, and all of us are learning. The other day there was Guru Purnima. Several of my students sent me wishes. I wrote back to whomever I could. I didn't reply to all, but I wrote back to whomever I could, saying that everyone is my teacher. Like I am your teacher, everyone is my teacher, and all my students are my biggest teachers. I've learned so much from all of you. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone. And since I've talked about Guru Purnima, let me talk about uh, Ashwini Lad as well as Mr. Savan Vani. Both of you have been my teachers over here because I was not very comfortable with this kind of online discussion, and they have done a very good job. Thanks a lot. See you tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for giving us the guideline about importance about of reading and what is meant by. You have told us what is meant by skimming and scanning. So most of the times we cannot focus on reading. So because of your lectures, we can focus in future. So it will definitely help us in our research work also. So thank you very much, and we will meet tomorrow for your next module.
Okay.
So
I yeah, continue, continue.
so
I wanted to comment on what you just said.
okay,
Well, I don't normally like lecturing. I like discussing, but here there I had that constraint. But whatever it is, thank you very much for feeling that it will help you. But I have a word of caution. I have a word of warning to you. Whatever we can do in 2 hours is just telling you certain things.
yes,
Just by understanding this and just by memorizing this is not going to help. And every tip that I say may or may not help you all the time. For example, somebody asked me, how do I memorize or how do I retain?
yes.
Memorizing is bad. How do I retain? I can only give you some ideas over here, and it is not necessary that those will always work. You have to develop your own skills, your own time, and it's a question of long time. It's a question of practice, 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 and then only you will be perfect. Actually, you will never be perfect. No one is always perfect, but you will always be better than you were yesterday. And today, you will try to be better tomorrow, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
I request all participants to fill the feedback form